Hey, what's up everybody? Video 44 coming at you with another video. Alright, so sending a happy heavenly birthday to my pops. I'm not sure exactly how old he would have been, but I'm sure probably in his early 90s maybe. I think probably 91, 92, something like that. We lost him the same year I lost my mom back in 16. He had a lot of health problems, but he hung on very long. You know, it was one of them type of things where they gave him 2 years to live. He lived like 8 or something like that. So, you know, we were very blessed as a family to have him. And, you know, one of the reasons why I have so much confidence in my body physically is because of coming from his family tree and how durable he was as a person throughout his years. He didn't eat very good, which caused him some health problems and stuff like that. But he stayed the same weight for a good majority of his life. Worked every day, would drive like 3 hours a day when he was in his 70s, you know what I'm saying, raising a family. So like I have a lot of confidence that my body can endure certain things, and I think a lot of it has to do with being his son. So yeah, that's what's on my mind, man. This is his birthday, and you know, I don't know, did I have my channel when he passed back then? I don't think I had my channel yet. Maybe I did. It's kind of foggy to me. I smoked so much weed back in that era of my life. So I would be lying if I said I remembered exactly what year or what era of my life I started this channel. I don't remember. I don't think I think probably after. I think I started the channel somewhere in the Linux era of my life, early Linux years. But it's hard to know, man. It's hard to look back on it and actually have any understanding or remembrance of that. But the point I'm trying to say is, you know, it was a tough time when he passed away because, you know, my mom had just died literally like 8 months before that. And I was still dealing with that, you know what I mean? In my mind, I was just trying to run it on fumes. And although I knew he was older and not well and stuff like that, we had him on hospice for several years, and he was just doing a great job of hanging on. But when he died, it was almost difficult for me to really mourn him properly because I was still trying to numb myself from the passing of my mother. So it was strange for me, man. I definitely went to the funeral, and I had a hell of a time driving there and back because I was having some wheel alignment issues, and the rain was bad, and the wind was blowing, and my car was swaying, and the wheel was like stuck. So that was one of the memorable moments of my life where I had to lean on God. Before I even started the car to head back in all of that, my car didn't start. It was starting to have transmission issues as well. And then where I was in Redlands, there was no service for my phone for whatever reason. And I parked my car 3 or 4 blocks away from where my family lived. And it was just like when I got in the car, I couldn't call them, couldn't start the car. I was drunk and a little stoned because I had been drinking with the family and smoked a little weed with my cousins. So it was just one of the most scary moments at the time for my life. Before a lot of stuff happened that was significantly more terrifying for me, that was one of the scariest moments of my recent memory, because I was just like, God, please start this car. It was pitch black night. I couldn't even see the way the streets were set up out there. There wasn't no real street lights. So it was amazing that I even found my way back to my car. But I knew I wasn't going to find my way back to their to their home. Yeah, and so it was like, I just sat there, prayed a little bit, and like after like 10 minutes of sitting there, the car just turned on. You know, I tried the ignition and it worked. So, and then when I started the car, pulled off, and started realizing my wheel was like 3 times harder to turn. Actually, I think I started understanding. I noticed that problem on the way there, ironically enough. Halfway on the 3-hour drive, I realized that was what was the case. So, yeah, man, somehow I got home safely. Could barely see. It was fog. It was storming. Driving around from Redlands all the way back to Linux. It's like I think it was like a 2.5 hour drive maybe. And it's just like, I don't even know, man. how I got home safely, but God got me back home safely. I never forgot that. And mind you, I'm leaving my dad's funeral. Like, the funeral was like 4 or 5 hours earlier. That was just a very, very difficult year, man. 2016 and 2024. Them years, I mean 23 actually, last year. This year's been fine, but last year, them 2 hardest years of my life, man. Yeah, my God, man. Like, obviously I had some stuff that went on that was traumatic when I was little. 2 years old, so we could say like 1987 or something, 1986. But, you know, I was so young that it was kind of really hard to even know what the hell was going on. But for the years that I've been awake and conscious, those are the 2 hardest years that I can think of. Last year, when I found myself in this situation in 2016 when I lost both of my parents, and was also kind of homeless in a way, that whole situation was messed up too. So I wasn't homeless necessarily, but I was like about to be kind of thing, and it didn't necessarily play itself out, which I was very thankful. But that whole thing was just rough, man. That whole year was crazy. But I still managed to make a way to work through it, and you know, I was able to go to both funerals, obviously make sure I represented myself as their son at both funerals. And you know, I ended up getting fired on my birthday that year. It's crazy, like, just, man, all that was going on, and in between my mom and dad death, my birthday falls and I get fired that day because some lady who had some power in the building that in the property that I worked for, decided she wanted to break a rule. It was my job to keep her from doing it. So she put her hands on me, more or less, pushed me and all that. I'm security, telling her not to park a certain place. I probably told this story before, but they ended up getting on my case because, of course, she was powerful. So, you know, who am I? They're gonna choose the problems that come with pissing her off, or firing the security guard that ultimately did his job and telling her not to park wherever she wasn't supposed to park. So, mind you, this is my birthday. I shouldn't even been at work. I should have called off. But yeah, let me tie my shoe here. Bear with me. But that was what happened there, man. So 2016, a year I won't forget. But I'll tell you this: people can say whatever they want about weed. Marijuana got me through all of that. And mind you, I'm very happily sober right now. I ain't smoking no weed, ain't gonna buy none, ain't interested in, ain't getting any. For these problems, I don't think it's better for me to have them. But for that year, weed was a very strong blessing in my life. Because for all of those problems I had, I was getting high for every bit of that nonsense. All of it. I had a different strain of weed just about every day throughout that whole process. So, yeah, man, it serves its purpose. I'm telling y'all, we can say what we want. Some things good, some things bad. But for 2016, I was very happy to have had plenty of marijuana to get me through all those damn problems. Ain't no regrets about that. I ain't gonna pretend like I have any regrets about that. No, sir. So, yeah, man, that's kind of what comes to mind, man. I wasn't very close to my father, you know what I mean? I really wasn't. We had birthdays where we didn't call one another. Sometimes we did, you know. It wasn't like a personal, emotional thing, you know. We were distant, comfortably distant. I think it was my mom who wanted me to have a closer relationship with my father, you know, just in general. But I don't think either one of us really required that from one another. I don't think so. Even now, as I look back on it, it's not like I have any negative or indifference or sadness. Nah, we were good. We were good. We were always good. Never argued. Nothing. When we saw one another, we had great conversations, smile, laugh. I wasn't never know why ain't you around, none of that. And that just wasn't the dynamic. It really wasn't. You know what I mean? I think I was where I was supposed to be with my mom. And he chimed in as much as I needed him to. You know what I mean? As far as what my personality would require. You know, come pick me up maybe 3 times a year. Hang out with my brothers and sisters. Got to watch them grow. That was important to me. You know, maybe people need more from me than I need from them. I don't know, but I was very happy with how that went. There wasn't no upset. It wasn't like I was sitting up saying, "Mommy, where's Daddy at? He should be in the house." Nah. None of that. if anything, if he would have been around, I'd have been asking him, shouldn't you be home with the kids and Sylvia? Like, that's honestly how that would have went. Hey, why are you here? Like, that's just the dynamic, though. It's a very unique dynamic that I had there. And I'm thankful that my mother had good things to say about him throughout my growing up, so that the absence didn't create any weirdness where otherwise there wasn't any. She wasn't resentful. You know, she wasn't sitting up saying, yo, daddy, this, none of that negative stuff. And we're great friends. Happy to hear from him every time he called. They laughing and talking and smiling. And, you know what I mean? And every time they see one another, they smiling, big grins and stuff. Like, it was always good energy there between my parents. And so I couldn't have been more blessed for that type of circumstance and that type of scenario. I think it's probably in the 1%, to be honest with you, of single parent situations. It pertains to the parents getting along. Like, they ain't had no problems. You know, when my mom had financial issues, there were times where she felt like it would have been, you know, wonderful if we could have got a little more out of the situation from my dad. But he paid, you know, I saw checks that came in for child support. And no courts, I don't think, were ever needed in that situation. You know, so they were older. I think that's part of it. My dad was already in his 50s when I was born. My mom was like 38. So it's like a lot of the immaturity that stems from having a child and not necessarily handling situations well. It's because a lot of times people in their younger ages, my parents were old, so like they had already been through that. My dad had already raised kids. By the time I came around, he had grown kids. So it was like none of that kind of played into it. They had already been on this earth long enough to know how to handle certain difficult situations. My mom was just happy to have a son because she had never had any kids up until that age. So it was like she really wanted a kid. She was ready to. She had done everything she wanted to do for herself. Now it's time to pour all her love into a child. And I just so happened to pop up and wasn't planned. So it was like she was excited about that. So this is a really, really special set of circumstances that God allowed me to endure based on my parents getting along, man. We didn't always have the greatest time, me and my mom. We sometimes didn't get along. But her and my dad, I never saw them have any problems. It was some situations that took place that my mom had that she didn't agree with. Some things happened, but it wasn't like they had to scream and holler to fix those issues. Never did. So I was fortunate, man. That was a good example for me. And my mom seemed very content with being single. That was what I was able to surmise. My mom didn't have any desire to be with nobody in my sight at all. It wasn't like she was trying to figure out how to find a man to raise a son. That wasn't how she was wired. So that was also played into the dynamic. She wasn't particularly chasing my father in any way. He had remarried early in my life. She was very happy with, you know, that situation. She didn't have a problem with that. So this has all worked out for me to have a good situation and looking back on it. So hopefully that's what comes about of a lot of situations going forward for a lot of people who have children and they don't necessarily find themselves meant to be together. I think you gotta try to find a way to get along as friends and make sure that being unselfish with your funds can be a thing for both parties, however that looks. And if you can have those two things work out, then you can iron out anything else. Kid may create problems if they have a certain personality, a certain energy, but if the parents can get along and agree, then that's more than half of the battle, I believe. So that's what my life shown me. But yeah, man, that's what comes to mind. I'm just very thankful to have had a really cool dad, and the good thing is I was able to see him be a man in the areas that I needed to see him be a man. You know what I mean? He wasn't in the house with me, but he was raising 4 other children in the house with another, you know, with his wife. So it was like, and there wasn't no weird you cheated on me type stuff going on. You know what I'm saying? Everything was fair from what I knew. So ain't nobody did anything to hurt nobody. The situation was smooth, pure, and then from there they just amicably raised me the best way they could. And so it was like, you know, I was good. And my mom, you know, did the best she could. She had a pretty solid, good job for the most part. We didn't always manage our money correctly. My demands were expensive, I will say. And so that kind of thing she would always give me what I wanted and put herself in debt doing it. And I definitely would have loved to have not look back on myself and see myself as spoiled, but ain't nothing I could do about that. Looking at it now, I was happy, so it was what it was. But you know, at the end of the day, the hardships that I had did not involve my father creating any problems. So that's something I can definitely say was a blessing for sure. So yeah, man, I think about my dad with a lot of good thoughts on a day like this. It's hard to say you miss somebody that you didn't have too much time with, but I had some great times with him just the same, you know what I mean? The ones that I had counted. We had some times alone where I could actually have a conversation to get to know the man, you know, long drives where there wouldn't be nobody else in the car but me and him. So we had some good one-on-ones over the years, you know, very good one-on-ones. So I take those with me. A lot of my my thoughts came from some of them conversations. A lot of how I operate and some of those values came from him taking me to church every time I was with him. Every Sunday he was in the church. You know what I mean? So I think that respect for the Lord carries forward with me on both sides, my mom and dad. The families, both of my families share the same faith, same Christian values. So that was easy for me, you know, to kind of just fall into that and keep true to it. And a lot of what it is I'm about comes from those values that they instilled in me, allowing me to have my own relationship with God, and, you know, got me through some difficult times, man. I don't know that I have that relationship with God or some of the focus that I have on leaning into faith if it weren't for them both doing that and believing in that wholeheartedly. So, you know, I'm a fortunate guy, man. I ain't gonna sit up here and say that we had it all or that everything that was going on was peachy, but we knew how to iron out our problems by leaning into faith. And it was good seeing my father be a man in other areas where I wasn't, you know, where I wasn't raised. To see him knowing that he could do for me was most important, because, you know, a lot of times kids don't get a chance to see their parents, the men in their lives, be men if they're not in the house. It's like they screwing up in other areas. You know, what I knew was that if my father wasn't somewhere around myself, he was somewhere being a father to my siblings. You know what I mean? And that in the way that I'm wired is important. It's like I'd rather him be doing that than running around trying to do stupid stuff in the streets. You know what I mean? Or running around trying to be a ladies' man all over the place, piling up the earth and not taking care of kids and stuff like that. That wasn't his style. That wasn't how he operated. And so it gave me a good understanding that at least I know a good man is taking care of my siblings. That's really what it was about too. Because I had such a strong love for my siblings, my little ones and the older ones, but the ones who still needed to grow, to where for me, I just wanted I was comforted knowing that he was taking care of them. You know, that made me happy. My mom and I, we got this, but is somebody there watching over them? And the answer was yes. So I know that that's not normal. A lot of people be like, "You should be home with us. Why ain't I more important than the other kids?" That's just not how I was wired. That's not how I took that. That's not what it was for me. So, you know, I was always all right. And any of the stuff that I otherwise needed my dad to be there for, we just did without, man. It wasn't, you know, he wasn't really a go play ball kind of guy anyway. He wasn't like, oh, he's gonna teach me the sport of basketball. That wasn't really his thing. He was more like go fishing, outdoorsman. You know what I mean? And that wasn't how I was. So even some of the stuff that he would have been around for, I don't think catered itself to my city boy personality. He was a country guy, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. So we were different in that way. I didn't take after him that way. I took after my mom. I want to be in the city, you know, that kind of thing. So a lot of the stuff that you like, where wasn't your dad around for this? If he was around, he wouldn't have taught me this. we would have learned entirely different things, which could have been valuable, but it wasn't really my personality to do some of those things. I didn't want to be outdoors all the time. I wasn't really big for fishing and stuff like that. That's not who I am. I don't mind doing that stuff once in a while, but consistently like he does and like some of my brothers and them do, they take more after dad than I do in that way. I'm not. Now I'm trying to be around the buildings, trying to be outside in the city life. So, you know, it is what it is, man. It was always a contentment based on certain things that I just knew he was about versus myself that I knew that wasn't my personality. And how that would have changed me if he was close to me, I don't know. But I pretty much think I'm the way I am either way, to be honest with you. So, you know, just very thankful to think back on my father in positive ways, man. Not everybody has that, and on a day where we celebrate his birthday, it's easy to talk about him in good ways, positive ways. Talk about how he raised his families. You know what I mean? 2 sets of families, multiple kids in both situations, and you know, they all turned out pretty good, man. There's some blips in the road, but everybody turned out good. He has a big family now that he leaves behind, grandkids, great grandkids. Family's massive, man. His branches are massive. I think he had like 11 kids. Some of them have multiple kids, you know what I mean? So my father's lineage is extremely well represented in this world right now, and I'm proud to be a part of them, man, for real. Shout out to all the Fulmers out there and everybody, Palais, and all of the people that are attached to us, man. The Graves and all the family members that come from him, you know what I mean? It's a lot of us now, you know, but it is what it is, man. I'm just gonna keep pushing forward, you know what I mean? Celebrating my dad's birthday in my own way, just kind of doing my little routine. I don't know what the day holds for me, but I knew I didn't want to stay in the house. I did a couple pieces of art before I left. Of course, did a Laker video I encourage everybody to check out. And you know, I left a video yesterday talking about some of the devastating things that I saw on my Instagram in regards to the genocide that I think is important that people know is happening. Kind of don't really want to get into it in this particular video, but I definitely left something there for you yesterday that needs to be heard, man. So when you're done with this, if you got some time, I encourage you to check out some of those old therapy sessions. They're all there for to age well, you know. That's why I labeled them and named them the way that I have. It's because I want people to follow the chronicles, even if my memory doesn't serve me as well as the documents do. Because a lot of stuff I did and it's watched once and never looked at again, and my memory is not the greatest in the world. So that's another reason why those therapy sessions are so important. And some of the videos before I even started labeling them therapy sessions were important. See how much I've changed. See how much I've grown in some of my political points of views. And some of the stuff aged however it did. Maybe I'll go back when I have a bunch of time in my life to do nothing and try to watch as many of those videos as I can stomach of myself. See what all I've done, look on my past. But it's all there, and hopefully I can keep the channel going and it will stay there. And you know, as a time capsule of my life, so people who come after me can know of me in ways that maybe I don't know of my father, you know what I mean? Because there wasn't no such thing as YouTube or anything like that. There wasn't no diaries back there for me to read and learn, you know? Just knew of him what people told me and knew of him what I knew, but as far as the details of his life and certain things, I don't really know. I'm not gonna lie to y'all. And I never really did any homework, deep enough homework to find out certain things. So just is what it is, man. Thankful for the times I'm in, thankful I have a voice here. And hopefully I'm honoring my dad in the way that I am, by using my voice for what it is I believe in and standing strong, you know. That's through difficulties. That's really all I can say. So that's pretty much what I am going to say. Happy birthday, Pops. Video 44. I thank y'all for watching. Bye-bye.